Camp counselors of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing you've seen happen at camp? My time to shine. I was witness to one of the most hardcore and insane things that has ever happened at a Christian camp. In the summer of 2001, I was a counselor or work crew member at a Christian camp in Northern California. I was there for a month, and we had 4 different groups that showed up for 1 week each. This first 3 groups were completely normal and without incident. The last week, we had a group of about 300 at-risk kids that were from underprivileged areas up and down the Pacific Coast from San Diego to Seattle. These were mostly kids that were growing up on some mean streets and rarely got out into nature, so it was awesome for them to be out in nature and getting the full camper experience. The first day went fine, and it was mostly just everyone settling in. After the second day, however, things started getting a little bit tense between some of the different groups of kids from different areas. On the third day, we had a hoedown with all the campers on the basketball court as a dance floor. This is where tensions came to a head and where shit got intense very fast. Unknown to our ultimately naive camp leaders, there were multiple Crip and Blood gang members from different cities throughout the group of campers. The hoedown ended up becoming a battleground. I'll never forget watching a 6-foot-plus teenager leap off from the top of some bleachers like Roddy Piper off of a turnbuckle and smash an unsuspecting camper's face in. It erupted into a full-blown brawl that lasted the better part of an hour. I honestly consider it a miracle that nobody was killed. I have seen a few street fights in my day, but this one made me never want to see another one. As a result, a few campers went to the hospital, a few got arrested, and the rest went back to their bunks. Later that evening, each counselor was assigned a bunkhouse to bring a tray of brownies and a pitcher of juice to. We did this on day 3 for all the camp groups. Basically, we were supposed to befriend them with juice and brownies and tell them about how great our Christian organization is and how Jesus has positively affected us. Upon entering the bunkhouse, I see a timid white counselor with his head in his hands in an almost fetal position sitting on the edge of a bunk. As I look around, I notice all of the campers are rummaging around in their bags and grabbing their gang colors and bandanas. It wasn't really picking up on what was happening until I heard the unmistakable sound of a slide being pulled back on a handgun. As I turn around, I see 2 kids tucking in pistols to their waistbands. These kids were suiting up for a full-blown gang war in the middle of a Christian camp. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I must have said something because their group leader guy looked up from his hands with watery eyes and just mouthed, "I don't know what to do." I set down the pitcher of juice and plate of brownies on the ground and booked it to the main building in the camp. I told the camp leaders what was going down and they called 911 immediately. Luckily, the cops got there relatively fast given it was fairly close to a small town. They ended up arresting over a dozen campers and even a few of their group's counselors. To this day, I don't know what their counselors were arrested for. They canceled the rest of the camp and sent all the kids home 3 days early. That was the last summer camp I was ever a counselor at. TLDR, Bloods and Crips take a trip to Camp Winnipesaukee. I worked as a junior counselor at a summer camp quite some years back that had kids aged 6 to 15. One camper, let's call him Billy, he was 10, was really homesick. Billy was very shy and awkward, and you could tell something wasn't 100% right with him. Lights out was at 8 p.m., but they could use a lantern to read, tell ghost stories, other shit, as long as they didn't disturb their bunkmates. Now, a few things happened while Billy was at camp. First thing, Billy was being made fun of by this other camper. We'll call him Jake. Jake was the typical, "my dad can beat up your dad" brat. One night, Jake comes to the counselor cabin crying. He said he woke up and someone was peeing on him and peeing in his mouth. He didn't know who, though, because he had piss in his eye and couldn't see. After asking around, nobody saw anything, so we documented it, reported it to the parent, and the mom came to get him. One down. Next incident was a few nights later. Another kid, we'll call him Chad, stole Billy's dinner and ripped up one of his Pokemon cards. Not sure if it was Pokemon, but it was a game card of some kind. That night, we hear yells yells coming from Billy's cabin. We run over and see Chad with a giant cut on his head and a broken vase. Apparently, the vase had fallen off of the shelf while Chad was sleeping and hit him. Billy had a shit-eating grin the entire time. Chad needed 8 stitches and apparently had some skull fractures. Not sure how accurate the skull fracture part was. Other counselors talked. 2 down. The last and final thing that happened was about a week after the vase incident. Another kid, we'll call him Derek, was having a rough time at camp. He was also homesick and missed his parents. I figured Derek and Billy would get along great. I was wrong. Long story short, Billy was found in one of the closets shoving a broomstick handle into Derek's butt while Derek cried and touched Billy's dick. They had their parents called and they were both kicked out of camp. I come to find out 15 years later that Billy's father was manipulating and sexually abusing him almost every night. And that's just how he thought you made friends. To this day, I know the tale of Billy lives on as the craziest thing that's ever happened at that camp. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Just a few things to add. I asked around, the camp is still open and the story of Billy's butt broom still lives on. For some reason, people were confused about why there was a vase in their room. It was more like a tall clay pot. The campers did arts and crafts. According to an old friend I know in the local PD, Derek died a few years ago. He's unsure if it was drug-related or an accident. He's trying to find more info. I really hope he got therapy, though. Billy's dad was arrested for incest, rape, and sexual abuse when he got his 14-year-old daughter pregnant. Not sure if he's still in jail or where he is. I don't know where Billy is, and no, that's not his real name. This actually happened earlier today. I work at a summer day camp at a local park with kids in kindergarten age group. Interesting and gross things happen almost every day with kids at that age, but today's events took the cake. Basically, this 6-year-old boy found a dead bird in the grass and decided it would be fun to pick it up and smear the blood and guts all over his hands and arms. After doing that, he started chasing around other campers to try and share his bird entrails on them. I had the pleasure of catching the gore-covered kid ripping the bird's ravaged carcass out of his hands and spending half an hour in the bathroom getting him and myself cleaned up. When I asked him why the heck he picked up a dead animal, he said he thought that it was something awesome to do. Finally a chance to post this. One year I was working at a regular camp and had a lead counselor run over to another counselor and I to say, "Look in the first stall of the boys' bathroom." We left our kids with our age group's female counselors and ran. By the time we made it, a crowd of counselors had formed around the toilet. Contained inside was by far the mightiest, largest turd I have ever seen in my life. Easily a diameter of 3 inches and long enough to be far down into the toilet, while also free-willying out of the surface of the water. No campers were told about this. A few days later, a camper asked me if we were running to the bathroom the other day because of a giant piece of poop and claimed to be the conjurer of it. I was mortified. Nobody will ever believe this. My parents never did. For some reason, it didn't make national news. But here we go. I went to a summer holiday camp once, not religious or any other organization hosting it, just a cheap way for parents to send their kids off for a couple of weeks in summer. Well, on the around 8-hour bus trip there, I already noticed some kids seemed odd, but didn't think that would be an ongoing theme. I was wrong. It turned out that many institutions housing kids displaying behavioral problems, to use a nice term, were sending kids there too. It started out with the older kids, around 15, regularly bullying and hurting younger kids. I got to be a victim on day 1. Yay! We were housed in little wooden huts with 8 or 10 kids each. Day 2, it started to smell very bad. After telling the camp staff and them searching the hut, it turned out to be a kid, he will appear again, shitting and pissing in his fucking suitcase. Camp staff threw the suitcase away, told us to take it easy on him and not tell anybody. Of course, we told the whole camp. That probably pushed the kid to completely off the edge. He started running around naked and usually with a boner, telling weird lies like, "We don't have knives at home because I peeled all of the wallpapers with knives, so my dad made us knives out of Coke cans." At that point, we all knew he didn't have a family already. He lived in some sort of loony bin for kids. And he also started getting violent. At some point later, he attacked me. Naked, with a boner, I crushed him. Other kids said I kicked him until he didn't move anymore. I don't remember kicking him after he went to the ground, but that day, even the biggest kids didn't try to fuck with me anymore. So I probably snapped and did kick the shit out of him. Until now, you may think, well, that doesn't sound too crazy to believe. Let's change that. Right next to the campgrounds, there was a traveling circus at the time. Clowns, animals, etc., all the usual circus stuff. But this circus was odd. Some kids claimed one of the clowns would hunt camp kids, only wearing his clown makeup. That I can't confirm, never saw that happen. Most likely, kids made it up. But one day I returned from the beach, 200-meter way or so, and on the way back, a kid coming to the beach tells me, "You can't go back to camp. There's apes going wild and police everywhere." Yeah, right. Heard too many bullshit stories already while being there. Well, I reach camp and it looks almost completely empty. A couple police are to be seen. I almost reach my hut. Then a policeman sees me and screams to run into the hut quick. I'm like, what the fuck? Run into the hut. Kids in there say apes broke out of the circus and are running amok in the camp too. We all stick to the single window and, in fact, at some point, a chimpanzee wielding a glass Coke bottle runs past and smashes windows. Not ours, though. Chased by police. We're all super excited. One kid in the hut claims he saw a giant gorilla earlier. Nobody believes him until we hear shots but still can see the chimpanzee running around. It wasn't a full-grown gorilla, but still around 120 kilograms, I would guess. They shot him after trapping him in the camp's gym. Nobody else was hurt, just damage to the buildings. There was so much chaos, we actually got to see the body of the gorilla in a giant pool of blood. Like 2 to 3 square meters on the floor. Police and camp staff couldn't control hundreds of kids at the same time. Story was that the animals were badly mistreated in the circus and snapped during one of the shows, running away straight into camp and probably just getting more crazy with all the screaming and running kids. You surely realize by now I wasn't a counselor, but fuck it, you already read it and it did really happen. I think it's relevant enough. Edit. If somebody actually heard of this story, Germany, Baltic Sea camp, max 50 to 80 kilometers from Hansa Park, or even has a newspaper article about it from that region, I would be super psyched. Happened around early to mid-90s. A 13-year-old girl trying to cut herself with a dull razor when she was upset. 2 counselors having sex on the beach of the man-made lake. I didn't see this personally, but it was well known among the staff. It was at night, but campers were definitely within earshot. A 16-year-old boy making advances on a 10-year-old girl, fully knowing her age. We put a stop to that one real fast. Said 10-year-old girl making advances on a 19-year-old male counselor. After I told her to stop, she turned to me and asked if he and I were fucking. Point blank. The camp doctor from the local ER, he had 2 daughters at the camp, trying to sleep with several of the very young female counselors and walking into our cabins when he knew full well we would be changing. The owner's son smoking weed in full view of kids. Edit. A 14-year-old boy tried to grope me on an obstacle course during the camp carnival. A 5-year-old girl peed the bed next to mine and we couldn't tell for days because it was so humid that we thought it was the mildew on the damp towels. Poor girl slept in her own piss for 2 to 3 days. Edit 2. I had a 5-year-old boy who was the sweetest boy in the entire world. However, in my day group, there was a 7-year-old girl that apparently had a crush on him. They soon started dating, and her comments made it clear that she had some experience, aka she wanted him to kiss her. I started having the kids line up by gender groups rather than together and kept them super far apart after that. The camp owner was a sociopath and ran the camp into the ground that summer, essentially. She hired people from Turkey to come and teach sports. These people were near Olympic level in Turkey. But as soon as they got there, she forced them to work in the kitchen for 12-plus-hour days with almost no break. They were also promised English classes and interaction with kids and other counselors, which they never got, and they weren't paid much either. It was bad. There's more, I'm sure, but I can't remember all of them right now. It was a fucked up summer. Edit 3. Because I'm getting a lot of comments about these, no, I did not have sex with any counselors that summer, male or female. I had a boyfriend. Had I been single, I still wouldn't have banged, just because he was a self-admitted man whore. Yes, we tried very hard to get the 10-year-old girl help. It was known she came from a bad situation, and we all tried to help her as best we could. I said camp doctor in quotes because it seemed like he was just playing a creepy porno role 95% of the time. The reason I separated the little boy and the little girl was that he seemed genuinely freaked out by the idea, and I could have gotten in trouble for letting it happen, no matter how cute it was. I also had my first kiss at 5 and was told to wait until I was 21 to do it again by my kindergarten teacher. Yes, everything in this happened in one summer, minus the girl cutting herself. I was 13 then and a camper at the time, and the girl peeing the bed. That was another summer when I was a junior counselor. I made a mistake in replying to an earlier comment, but yes, everything else minus those two were the same summer. I won't say the name of the camp just in case someone from there recognizes it. There were these two kids, which we named Poo Poo Picasso and Gandhi. Both were in my friend's cabin, which was year 2 campers, so the kids were just out of the 3rd grade. So I guess they were around 8 or 9 years old. Anyway, Poo Poo Picasso would smear his shit. He'd defecate inside of his trunk and left it there for a day before my friend noticed the smell. He wrote on the walls of bathrooms with his own feces. It was disgusting. Now, Gandhi didn't want to be at summer camp despite it being a total blast. He would bitch and complain and ask to call home, which he wasn't allowed to do unless it was a rather serious situation. Fine, we deal with this sometimes, but what we weren't expecting was for him to go on a hunger strike. That's right, a hunger strike. He just would refuse to eat for several meals. He would break and eat a ton of snacks during our afternoon refreshment period when he thought we wouldn't notice. What made Gandhi really special is that he learned how to vomit on command. To do so, he would drink insane amounts of water. Then, when we would ask him to do something he didn't want to do, he would just vomit everywhere. It was nasty, but at the same time, typing this out is making me giggle. Eventually, the two kids got over it, I think. Didn't witness, but I had 2 LITs just finish grade 9, sneak off into the forest late at night, and the girl gave the boy a blowjob. The girl confessed to another girl who told me. When she was approached, she denied it, but the boy fully admitted to it. 1. LIT stands for Leader in Training. It's when a camper isn't old enough to be a counselor, but wants to learn how to become one. 2. The camp was in Canada. No, I won't say which one because I'm still really close with many of the staff there and think of the director as a great friend. 3. Stop guessing camps at the risk of damaging their reputations. If you want to guess your camp, you're welcome to inbox me. 4. Holy horny teens, Batman. Apparently there's a lot of camps this has happened at. I work in a building that hosts a camp for people with autism and other mental handicaps. A guy with something was really attached to his counselor, a girl. He really liked her and asked her out almost every hour of the week. She finally said no, I have a boyfriend, or something along those lines. He got really mad and stripped down and freaked out. He peed and pooped all over the floor. When other counselors were trying to calm him down, he ran over to a fire extinguisher box and smashed his head into the glass. He had big chunks of glass in his face and forehead, bleeding everywhere. We were told as building managers to stay clear of the floor he was on. They would clean it all up. It was odd. Another story. When he left the building, we also found a sort of poop shrine. He would poop in the closet and then mold underwear to it. He must have used a whole can of Febreze on the thing a day because we never knew about it. Couldn't smell anything. As a new camp counselor, you should do everything you possibly can to ensure that you get a group of older kids, ages 8 to 12 preferably. Any younger, and you're going to have some interesting experiences. There was one kid I remember named Sam when I had bathroom duty at the swimming pool. Sam was 5 years old and absolutely enamored with his wiener. In fact, Sam couldn't seem to use the bathroom without showing everyone else his miniature little friend. Usually, when all of the campers were changing for the pool, Sam would make it a point to run around and show off his little buddy. Every time he changed for the pool, the bathroom erupted in shouts and screams of "Sam, get away from me!" Now, being an adult male camp counselor dealing with this scenario is a very difficult situation. Any wrong move could be perceived as inappropriate, and additionally, no one likes dealing with naked people. Have you ever been in a fight with a naked person? Getting into an authority war with a nude 5-year-old that isn't your own kid is much, much worse. The desire to not touch them is increased tenfold. Unless, of course, you have some psychological issues. I yelled inside of the bathroom, "Sam, put your trunks on," any number of times, but his hearing was as selective as my old runaway Dalmatians. "Sam, you're going to be in timeout from swimming if you don't change and get out here now." Nothing. "Sam, don't make me come in there." That time he seemed to hear me, and this kid, I kid you not, turns to me and says, "You can't do that." And for the most part, he's right. I can't do that, and what's more is that I didn't want to do that anyway. All I have to threaten him with is time out, and if I did go in there, there wouldn't be much that I could do except for threaten him with time out in closer proximity. Luckily for me, all the kids finished changing despite being harassed by Sam and his miniature companion, and Sam, poor Sam, was left with no one to show his wiener to. So he changed and went swimming after a very, very long time out. TLDR, don't get stuck with the young kids as a new camp counselor. I worked as a counselor at a camp for adults with disabilities. All my campers were in their 20s to late 30s. One night, one of my campers was masturbating loudly and furiously. Because we all slept in one giant room, her noises were waking everyone up. It was so distracting that I had to give her the masturbation chat the next day and also explain it to all my campers privately. Boy, what a fun day that was. Myself and the other counselors in training stayed over in the food meeting hall place one night with one of the counselors. Truth or dare started happening. Someone truthed this French exchange student chick, "What's the furthest you've ever gone with someone?" In broken English, she said something along the lines of, "One time my cousin and I were together and he put his balls on me," motioned to her crotch, "and we went like this." Humping motion. Silence. Lots of worried looks exchanged. Next person's turn.